Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final in our Citizen-Centered Service Excellence webinar series. I am Dr. Lloyd Parks. I am the Leadership Development and Institutional Strengthening Specialist with the Caribbean Center for Development Administration. And just in case you are new to our webinar series, just to tell you a little bit about CARICAD and the work that we do. We are an arm of CARICOM. This year we've been in existence for 42 years. And our role is to serve our member states, of which there are 17 across the Caribbean, serve our 17 member states in the area of public sector transformation and reform. And this is all aimed at fostering our socio-economic development, both of our region and the respective member states. And we do so through a number of ways. One is through capacity building, and so our regular webinars are part of that capacity building thrust that we have. Our capacity building also includes a number of scheduled leadership development programs as well as customized ones, and the capacity building around other areas such as strategic planning, human resource management, organizational development, and others. We also offer technical assistance to our stakeholders, and we offer technical assistance in the area of organizational development, human resource development, etc. Strategic planning is another area. And so we invite you to visit our website to learn more about the work that we do. And we don't operate on our own. CARICAD has a number of memoranda of understanding with key partners, and we collaborate with them to offer technical assistance as well as capacity building around the various areas that I told you about. To give an example, last year and earlier this year, we have been doing a number of capacity building initiatives in collaboration with UNDESA, and so please do visit our website frequently, sign up to get our subscriptions so you can hear more about the things we have to offer from time to time, all right? So I'm looking at the list of participants and I recognize many of the names there. So what is on the slide is not new to you. We have a culture around how we encourage you to have the best possible virtual learning experience. And if this is the first time you're attending a webinar of ours, welcome. And so we want to remind ourselves that in order to have this great virtual learning experience, that we need to get rid of the distractions. So I invite you to close other software applications apart from Zoom on your device, mute your various phones, remind your colleagues that you're not available. This is 1.5 hours. I don't think most of us here are into the life-saving business. So if you can focus on your learning for 1.5 hours, that would be fantastic. Internet, even today, we're talking about digitization, etc. We know that one of the ongoing challenges we have in using digitization for service excellence is, of course, in many of our countries, bandwidth sometimes is still a challenge. So in order to have the best connectivity, it is best if you have an internet cable to plug that in. Now, for our webinars, you don't necessarily have to use your microphone, yeah? You can participate using the chat, but if you want to use your microphone, we invite you, if you have a good working headset and microphone, to plug that in, all right? So guys, where are you joining us from today? And I don't only want you to tell me where you're joining from. I want you to do that. But I am very curious about if you are joining us, and you were a part of one of our programs. Maybe you're from one of the cohorts. What cohort you know, you did you attend for our leadership development program, or maybe you attended our leading change workshop, or maybe you had attended some other workshop, the workshop that we did with UNDESA last year. You know, whatever way in which you're connected with us, if you have done a program with us already, I'd love to see it in the chat. So I see the chat going. So Giovanni is joining from St. Lucia. Welcome, Lynette. I see you, girl. Patricia from St. Lucia. No, I remember Patricia did our leading change workshop. Yes, yes. Omar from Jamaica, welcome. Joanna also from Jamaica, and Claudia from Jamaica, Tamar from Jamaica. Miguel, LDP cohort 6, the possibilities. Come on. Welcome there. Nicola from Trinidad, Michelle from Grenada, Jermaine Jewel Jean-Pierre is a name that I love. I love to pronounce it. Oh, from Dominica. She is our guest today, and she's from Cohort 5, Game Changers. Racine, welcome. Racine, I think this might be your first webinar with us. Welcome, my dear. Racine from Trinidad. Charles Sarah from Barbados. Yes, Charles did our digital transformation workshop last year that we did in collaboration with UNDESA. Yes, Simone from BVI, she did our introduction to leadership workshop. Good. Wendy from Cohort 10 in Trinidad. Adrian from Jamaica. Faye from Barbados, from the cohort COVID Conquerors. Yes, sir. Alison from Barbados, and she's from the cohort Pandemic Powerhouses. You see, we're trying to make everybody, if you haven't been to one of our programs or workshops, you need to be jealous. Jealous, I tell you, jealous. Siobhan from Trinidad, welcome. Anastasia from cohort 12. I think cohort 12, but Anastasia, what they were, Legacy Transformers? Yes. Radisha Belize. Shahini Hamilton from Jamaica, welcome. Najee from Jamaica too. Marsha from Montserrat. And Marsha, I believe you did our Leading Change workshop. Leading Change and Transition. Debbie from Antigua. Yes, Debbie. Debbie says several workshops. Too many to number. Yes, Georgia from Jamaica. And Georgia, you were from you were from Cohort 8, I believe, Georgia. Jacqueline from Jamaica. Jacqueline, you were in a cohort too. Come on, tell us the cohorts you were in. Cohort 10, all right. Yes, Georgia is telling me, yes, I am right. She's from Cohort 8. Fantastic. So welcome to everybody. And today's topic, today's topic I felt was very important to include, right? Because we are talking about service excellence, and we have been promoting the use of digitization as a pathway to achieving service excellence. But we know it's not just so, as we'd say in Jamaica. That approach, if we're going to get it right, if it's truly going to achieve service excellence, then it has to be that we take a user-centered approach. As our topic today, implementing a user-centered approach to the digitization of public services. It's really about getting into some of the things we need to do or not to do to ensure that we are marrying digitization with user-centeredness in order to achieve public service excellence across our various countries. Welcome to those who have joined us. I see a number of people have joined us. And, although I've moved on from that slide, if you just tell us in the chat which country you're joining us from. If you are from if you are a graduate of one of our various programs, to also put that in the chat as well. I see Jody is here, and Jody, welcome. Jody was in cohort 13, right? This was a cohort that was the first cohort to do our fully virtual leadership development program. They are the trendsetters. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So before we get into the presentation from our guest, I want us to share some examples. Because you see, notice that I share some examples of some frustrations you have experienced personally in accessing digitized services, right? And I believe that all of us have experiences. Certainly I have. And in fact, if we were good at it, we would need this webinar, right? And so what are some of the challenges that you have personally experienced when you have tried to access digitized services, whether it's paying taxes online, getting information about how to do something? Tell me some of the challenges that you have personally experienced. So I'm going to invite you to just type those in the chat, but you could also raise your hand as well, and we could unmute you and we could hear. So I'm going to give you a little time to type that up. So while I'm waiting for you to share in the chat some of the frustrations you have experienced, let me share some of mine. So I have found that there's some of our websites, and it's not just public services, to be fair, right? You know, it is just, you're trying to just find out basic information, and the search engine doesn't seem to work, you know? It's just, I don't know, but you just find it, eventually you might get it, you know, but it's just, you know, not making any sense. And so you spend so much time searching, right? Because the search engine doesn't easily bring it up, you know? So Miguel saying, obtaining the new digital birth certificate takes way longer than the manual. Yeah, that don't make any sense. Come now. Come on now. You know? So Desmond, you are really welcome, Desmond. So you are actually sending a direct message to me as opposed to everyone. So Desmond, I'm assuming is from Jamaica, and he's saying registering at the Tax Administration Jamaica office to become a contributor to the National Housing Trust. That's one of the things that exists in Jamaica. So he found it challenging to do so. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Any other frustrations? So Debbie, the information is not updated to reflect current and relevant data. Yes. That's another one I don't like. Yeah. Giovanni says websites are not updated regularly. Contact information no longer works. Georgia said lengthy application process. Yes, I have had that experience too. You know, Patricia said the internet sometimes can be dropping. Yeah, because this requires, you know, digital services require internet. Yeah. Lynette, from inability to accept online payments in BVI. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think that's unique to BVI though. You know, that is an issue in quite a few of our countries. Any other challenges? All righty. Oh, and Michelle is saying here, Michelle Bain, again for her, it is, yes, having to set up to date. They're not maintaining information online as up to date. Georgia said having to set up an account first. Oh yes, oh yes. So thank you guys, and you can continue to keep those comments coming. We are taking note of those, yeah. Lynette is saying sometimes too many steps or requests for information that she doesn't feel is relevant, yeah. All right, so my apologies. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that our guest presenter might share her screen. But in the meantime, while she sets herself up to share her screen, let me introduce to you Dr. Jermaine Jewel Jean-Pierre. She is a Fulbright scholar She is an alumni of our leadership program, C5 Game Changer, right? She is from the beautiful Nature Isle, the Commonwealth of Dominica. And she will tell you that she is the wash belly. In Jamaica, wash belly means you're the youngest. She's the youngest of her siblings. She is currently the project manager for the World Bank Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. And this project is geared at digitally transforming the economy of Dominica and 3 other countries in the OECS, that's the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Computer Information Systems, MBA in Management Information Systems, another MBA in Information Technology, and she holds a PhD in Management Information Systems, right? She has a great passion for research, and she is a published author. She has published many articles in the Journal of Science and Technology. She is a leader par excellence, and among her many awards are the receipt in 2014 of the Government of the Commonwealth of Dominica Senior Managers and Public Officer of the Year Awards. And in 2017, she was a recipient of the Public Life Award, awarded to her by the Management Institute for National Development in Jamaica. She is a member, very active member of the Rotary Club, and basketball, that is one of her passions. She loves to sing, she loves soft rock music. But let me tell you something, you see this topic? I didn't think of to ask anybody else, because this is the woman that has done, let me tell you, she has done some wonderfully innovative things in terms of using digitization towards achieving service excellence. So she knows a thing or two about taking a user-centered approach to this. So it is my absolute honor and delight to invite my sister, Dr. Jermaine Jewel Jean-Pierre, to take the reins of this webinar. Jermaine Jewel, over to you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Parks, for that warm welcome and introduction. And to conserve bandwidth, I'm just gonna stop my video. So those of you who do not know me, this is me. So I'll stop my video now. So let me also say thank you to our participants for being here this morning. I know you had a lot of things to do, but you chose to spend your Wednesday morning with us. So thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to share with everyone on this particular subject. It's quite dear to me, and it's just always a pleasure to share knowledge and information on ICTs, and also to share what we're doing in the Commonwealth of Dominica. We consider ourselves to be, I'm sure you would have heard our declaration of being our first climate resilient country. And part of that is basically using technology to achieve that. So today we're going to look at implementing a user-centered approach. So digitization in the public service. And for the next 40 minutes or so, I will share with you on digital. And if you notice, I switched it from digitization to digitalization. And I will explain why in a few minutes of public services using a user-centered design, and that is bridging the gap to service excellence. And also I will share with you as well, like I said, what we have been doing in the Commonwealth of Dominica in using a user-centered approach to digitalization and digitalization. So first up, we're going to look at digitalization of public services. In 2012, the government of Dominica decided to digitize its events record. The implementing agency was the Civil Registry Division. And this was done at roughly 2.5 million US dollars. The project did not go off as successfully as we would have wanted it to because of several reasons. And one of them is that the implementing agency failed to adopt what is considered an integrated process approach. So if you know the civil registry, you know that birth would happen at a hospital. And well, in our case, the civil registry is the agency that can register a birth. So no other agency can do that. And so once you have the birth at the hospital, then the information is sent to the civil registry where they would register the birth. So although the event, we would have digitized the event in that you can receive an electronic birth certificate. However, the information for registration of that birth, that process remained a manual process. And so the hospital would write on a form or complete a form or write on a piece of paper that information, and then somebody would literally take it from the hospital and walk it down to the civil registry. In addition to that, they failed to completely deinstitutionalize the existing paper-based process flow and physical signatures. And so again, the process itself, you have the database of the events record, but everything else remained manual. For somebody to actually get that birth certificate, they must come into the civil registry. So the user, the man on the street, must come into the civil registry, complete an application form, hand it to a clerk who must now go onto the system and generate that birth certificate. They fail to update the outdated procedures, and so the laws remain the same. The process of having the birth registered online at the hospital, that was not done. The process of the user being able to apply online, that was not put in place. There's a form where they can complete online, but in terms of doing a direct application for the birth certificate or any event certificate, that was not done. And so they use what we would consider, they did not use what we would consider a system integrated approach to the digitizing of the event certificates. And so that's why we said that although the civil registry, they have digitized the records and you can get an electronic birth certificate, but the processes of ensuring that the user can apply online, there is integration with all the agencies involved in the producing of that certificate. Some of it still remain decentralized and also manual. So we can say there was no digitalization of the event record processes. There was digitization, but there was no digitalization. So I want you to get that clear. So it brings us to what is digitalization? And the reason I moved to digitalization is because over the years, especially in the public service, we have been doing a lot of digitization. Okay, so we have been digitizing our records. We have been moving from, the manual, the analog to digital data. However, for us to be able to achieve service excellence, which is what we want, we need to now move further from digitalizing our records to digitalization. And what is digitalization? Okay, so we look at the whole integration of digital technologies into our everyday life, everything that we can digitize, right? And when we speak of it in the sense of, economic and the whole social transformation and digital transformation, we are looking at adopting digital technologies to generate processes, share and transact information. Okay? Now, all of the things that we're doing in the public service, like our e-government, our e-health, our e-procurement, all of this is related to digitalization, getting to the whole, creating that whole business where our users can actually perform a process, an entire process online, creating that service excellence, okay? And we know that the public service is complex. We know that there are so many ministries, departments involved in one process. But what we have been endeavoring to do is to look at our key services, right? The services where we have a large number of transactions and ensuring that we can create or we can have digitalization of those services. Okay? I can see the chat, so if you're putting stuff in there, I'm not gonna see it now.
Not to worry, I'm monitoring the chat.
Okay.
And I'll bring anything in the chat to your attention.
Okay. Okay, so in digitalization, so we're enabling or improving our processes, we're leveraging digital technologies, and we have digitized data. So why do we want to look at digitalization? Why do we want to move past digitalizing or digitization to digitalization? Things are changing, There are new expectations from government. As a citizen, as a user, we do not want to be interacting with government the same way we did in 1990 or in 2001. We often hear of our users and our citizens complaining that, hey, and we had some of these comments this morning, well, earlier actually, in the chat where, we're like, hey, it's 2022. Why am I still standing in a line? Or why is it that I can't do a complete process online? So I must make an application for a birth certificate, but then I still have to go to a cashier to pay for it. Why can't I apply online and pay for it online at the same time? And so people are expecting government to change. There are new expectations from government. We have demographic changes. We have a younger population that are accessing services online. If you think about it, so if you have visited the bank lately, I hope you have not, because you should be doing online banking. But perchance that you went into a bank, there is that line where we talk of where that says senior citizen. You look at it, you're seeing there are less and less senior citizens standing in that line. And that is because we are shifting from people wanting to go inside of an institution to conduct business to doing it online. Our population younger, or young people They want the service online. They don't want to stand up in any line. We call them internet trained. They don't want to do anything physically in an institution. They want it online. So we have demographic changes. In addition to that, this is also a perfect opportunity for government to strengthen the trust among its citizens. You know, it's an age where technology is sort of changing demands, and we spoke about expectation. So 20 years ago, we would write a letter to the government institution and expect to get a response in a month's time. Now you send an email and we want the email response right away. How are we going to provide excellent service excellence if we do not have that trust? If our citizens don't trust us to offer better service, you know. In addition to that, you have social media, and persons are able to go online, go on social media and see what country X is doing, see what country Y is doing, and compare it to what you are doing. So they'll be like, okay, if country X and country Y can do it, they don't have all the money that we have, or they don't have all the population size that we have, and they're able to do it. Why can't we do it? You know, so the whole strengthening of trust is visible. Foster great effective collaboration between government agencies. So, as I mentioned earlier, in one process, you have to interact with several government agencies. Now, if we're not working together, if we're not collaborating, then we are not going to be able to achieve service excellence. It means that we will continue to digitize our data, digitize half of our data, but we are not getting to the end where our customer, our user, we're not getting to that user-centered approach that we're hoping to achieve. And so with digitalization, we puts us in a position to collaborate. Civil registry, hospital, immigration. These are all agencies that are involved in recording events. If we collaborate, hospital can now send the information and put their information actually into the system. Immigration can confirm when you come for your passport, you require a birth certificate. Immigration can confirm that information without telling the user, go to the civil registry, get a birth certificate, and come back. So it fosters a better and more effective collaboration between government agencies. Okay, so looking at the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica and our quest to move towards digitalization, there were some challenges. So we had work ethic and culture, a major challenge. Those of us who work in the public service, we know the culture of this is the way it was done, this is the way it has been done, and so what is the need, or why do we want to change it? Then we have the resistance of those that are not, we call them technophobia. While there may be technophobia, but they also just don't want to disrupt that status quo. This is what it is, this is how it's done. In addition to that, we have the frequent leadership changes. So somebody would have started the process, then somebody else comes along and they're like, okay, I don't necessarily want to continue what that person was doing. I need to start something new, or the person who started it did not provide adequate information for the person to continue, and so we're stuck. Limited capabilities in ICTs. We often find that the persons that are really skilled or would have the necessary qualifications and skills, they don't come into the public service because the public service can't pay them. So they go into the private sector. So we're not getting the best of the best to work with us in the public service. And so you often find that in implementing any software or digitizing any of our processes, we have to look for outside help. And because we are looking for outside help, then we are not able to sustain it. So we may take something to up to the digitation, but not the digitalization. Cybersecurity, this is a major challenge for us because more and more persons are getting scared of using their credit card online. So when we speak of payments, online payments, we find that individuals do not want to use their credit card because they're scared of getting hacked. Also, you have identity theft, so people do not want to put in their information online for all of these fears. And so the legislation that we need to put in place to protect our users, that is important. And if we have not yet started, we need to look at that, because what we have found is quite a number of our countries, they are putting in systems, but there's no legislation to support stuff like cybersecurity, data privacy, user privacy, and that sort of thing. And so we have to think of the next most important aspect of digitalization and even digitization, and that is ensuring that we have the legislation in place to support our activities. Then allocation of resources. Of course, if a government is going to get to have a choice between building a road and digitizing anything, then most will choose the road because it's a visible thing. It equals votes. You can't sell digitizing to a user, but it's easier to explain to them why you need the road. And so it is our job really to sort of show, hey, well, if we digitize or if we bring the process to you, if we're providing excellent service, then you may not need to be driving on the road as often as you would. And hence, we're reducing gas for you, the use of your vehicle, the cost of having to buy gas just to come into the city to pay for a birth certificate or apply for a birth certificate. We're saying to you that we're going to digitalize the entire process, and you can even get your birth certificate at your home, because leading to that service excellence, the next step would be to mail it to you, mail that birth certificate to you. And so these are some of the challenges that we would have encountered, and I'm certain that those challenges would be the same for you as well. Because one of the most difficult parts of digital transformation really is that perfect alignment of technologies and existing processes. How do we achieve service excellence? How do we align what is already existing, our existing processes, with the whole digital transformation using technologies, digital technologies? The longer you leave the process, or the longer the process has been running, the more difficult it is to migrate it into a digitized process. And part of it is that we do not create that common vision, or we lack that common vision when we are dealing with digital transformation. So we have, everybody is trying to do their own thing in their own little corner. We're not looking at it in terms of a whole of government approach. And most importantly, we're not looking at it from a user point of view. We're not doing it concentrating on that user-centered approach. Okay, so if we have that common vision, there's that big goal. The goal is to to provide event certificates online. This is our goal, this is the project, then we need to understand that we have to now align all of our existing processes and to make sure that it fits perfectly into the digital transformation process. So this is where our permanent secretaries, our cabinets of ministers, our champions, this is where they come in to ensure that we're working from a whole of government approach, and we have created a common vision. We have to establish an efficient division of labor, okay? We have already said that government agencies are connected to each other in some way or form. You know, it's rare to go to a government agency and not have to interact with another one when we're doing something. It's a rare occurrence, really. And so that means if one agency is going to digitize a process, have to ensure that all the other agencies are on board as well, that they are part of it. We are collaborating. We're going to sustain that collaboration and that information exchange. And we need to reduce the cost of ownership through holistic planning of processes and technology. Digitizing and implementing and digital transformation is expensive. And so if we can collaborate, we can bring ownership, and we can plan properly, then we can reduce the cost. So as I said before, if our processes are clearly established, then we can see where we are interacting, we can see where we need to collaborate, and we can see how we can share costs in whatever we are trying to accomplish. So user-centered design, so bridging that gap to service excellence, right? So why user-centered design and approach? So we know that, you know, in using a user-centered design, what we are basically doing is involving our users throughout the design process. And that includes, of course, the whole research and design technique. So we're going to digitize our event certificates or event record. Then the user is the one that's going to benefit, or the user has to be part of the process since they're going to benefit from it. You know, so there is absolutely nothing wrong in ensuring that we pull a few users. Hey, this is what we are going to do. How can we make this best for you? You know, or users will say, hey, whatever you do, please don't make it so that I still have to come in your office and fill out the form, or I have to go online and pay for it. Make sure when you're doing it, I can do everything online. And so this is why we need to involve our user as part of that whole approach, as part of that design. When we don't do that, right? When we have the lack, not using a user-centered design or approach, it will cost us time, it will cost us money, and it will also determine whether our project fail or not. And of course, our users are not always external. They can be internal to us as well. In the case of the civil registry in Dominica, the hospital was, you know, an internal user, or is an internal user, but they were not involved in the whole process. And so it cost us time and it cost us effort. Because who wants to, you know, have to sit and enter both on a paper and then a messenger has to bring it down? That's money, that's wasting. When we use the user-centered design and approach, we're also better understanding our user needs and requirements. I often tell my programmers, you're not doing it for yourself. Sometimes they design a website and they look at it from their perspective, and we're editing it or we're reviewing it. And I'm like, okay, why is this form, you're saying to me that I need to click here, and then it takes me to another page and I have to click here, then it takes me, and I'm like, why can't we make this much more simpler? And they'll be like, but that's the way it's supposed to be. And I'm like, no, that's, you program it that way because that's how it looks appealing to you. But think of the user who has to click 3 forms just to come, 3 screens just to complete a form. By the second screen, they're like, oh, enough of this. Let me just go into town and get this done. And so when we involve our users, we're actually targeting their needs and we're targeting their requirements. Granted, the requirements may not be technically sound and you have to make sense of it. But the point is, by involving them, you get a better understanding of how to build something that will be more pleasing, more user-friendly to them in the long run. The needs, abilities, and wants of the end users, it can drive the design and also the expectation in terms of functionality. So going back to a user having to click 3 screens just to complete one form can be nonsensical. Again, if we involve our users, then they can assist us in ensuring that it's just one screen that they need to click to get to the end. So a user-centered approach design, it makes it a lot easier to do things or to build systems that our users can use. It's one thing to spend millions of dollars on a system and the user can't use it. And we can't force them to use it unless we put it in law, which sometimes don't make much sense. But the point is, consult with them, and engage them. And how do we do that? Key principles of a user-centered design. And so we want to design for the users. We want to involve them. We're not the one going to use it at the end. They are the ones going to use it. Maintain consistency. It's government, so we should build our systems with one, I often say, almost from a similar framework, in that you don't want, if somebody goes onto, say, tourism, for instance, to complete a form, and then they go over across to health, that they cannot have that seamless process, because the one in tourism may probably be asking for 10 trillion things, and then they go across to health and it's less. So we want to, wherever we can, maintain that consistency, and so that it makes it easier for the user to have that seamless, and for them to be able to complete the process in as much and minimum time as possible, and provide adequate feedback. So if we have involved our user, if we're using a user-centered approach, then as we are designing, as we are going along, we should be informing our users. We should be consulting with them. We should be providing them adequate feedback, because we want them to feel part of the process. Often when somebody is part of a process, they get excited and they want to use it, because heck, they're helping to do it. Provide adequate navigation mechanism. When we're designing, we're digitizing our records, we're digitizing our processes. As much as possible on the screen, put the information there. Find ways, not clustered, but find ways to put the information so that it makes it easier for our user. Somebody listed a challenge of, that it's complicated to go through the process online. And that's because adequate navigation mechanisms were not put in place. And so we want to get rid of that frustration by doing that and offer assistance. There are the sites now, you can actually add the chat features, and of course we work from 8 to 4, so any chat feature we would have to indicate it's only available from 8 to 4. Email addresses, contact information. If somebody is stuck, they have a number to call, they have an email address that they can send their complaints to. What we have done in the government of Dominica, so we have done quite a number of innovations, we have built quite a number of systems, and we have been digitizing. So we have digitized a lot of our processes. However, we are now moving towards digitalization because we want to achieve service excellence, because we want our users to be able to complete an entire process online without that intervention. And we don't need to go backwards, but since we're still in COVID, we would know how COVID would have prompted us to quickly find ways of bringing services online to our citizens and to the persons who interact with us on a day-to-day basis. And so that sort of prompted us to say, hey, we have been digitizing, we have been doing digitization. Now we need to look at digitalization, because in 2022, and the way that we're building digital economy, we now need to move to the next step. So we have our e-payment portal, and we sort of used it as an example of how we could go from digitization to digitalization. And what we did was we would have interviewed users, both internally and externally, to get a feel for some of the services that they would want to have online. And so our reform management unit would have done a campaign called Service Excellence. And they would have gone out, done surveys, interview surveys, to get a feel of what citizens want, not just internally, but externally as well. And so we started with design, we do the system, we design, and then we implemented using the feedback that was given to us. And so we got whatever feedback we got, we did the system that way. So one of the things that our users wanted was ensuring that the payment itself, when you click to go towards the payment, that it be done in a secured manner. They were like, hey, I don't want anyone getting my credit card information and so on. So on our end, you can click pay now, and it leaves our site and it goes to the bank. So the bank is responsible for ensuring that the customer credit card information remains safe. After we had implemented the e-payment portal, we also went back out to our users and our stakeholders to get additional feedback from them. And we continue, it's a continuous process, because every other day we find things to improve on our e-payment portal. And so we are continuously going to our users to get feedback. We monitor it and we're evaluating it to see how we can make it better. So this was our approach to ensuring that we have something that is built based on our user-centered approach. In addition to this, we're part of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, and this project is looking at 3 components: digital ecosystem. Our digital ecosystem speaks to the environment in which we're trying to build digital economies. And this is where we are working on the cybersecurity and all of the elements that will ensure that our users operate safe and comfortable in the digital environment. Then we have digital infrastructure platforms and services, and this speaks to the public service and where we are looking to bring all of our processes, all the services that we offer online. And of course, we have digital skills and entrepreneurship, because you cannot, absolutely cannot do digital transformation if you do not have the necessary skills to be able to do it. My nieces was in Dominica, well, they were actually with Royal Caribbean, they were hiring individuals for the cruise ship, and she's coming out of Miami, and all of the questions, the forms, they were built on a tablet and an iPad, and say they wanted to engage or hire 100 individuals. They were only able to do about 70. Why? Because persons had the challenge of completing the forms online. Simple thing as being able to operate, to move from screen or to just operate, basic operation of the tablet. Some persons were not able to do that. And so, because we do not want anyone left behind, we made sure to include a component on digital skills and entrepreneurship. So in Dominica, we have created 15 innovation hubs with state-of-the-art equipment where persons can go and get classes. We're offering the classes at no cost to them. And so they can go, and we have done 15 because we wanted to decentralize the training and bring it to the people and not necessarily have the people come to the training. We want to bring it to them. And so these are the three components of this project as we seek to move to digitalization and service excellence. And it's going to increase digital connectivity, digital public services, and of course, using the technology to create more jobs, better equip our business places to offer better service, of course, leading to service excellence. And so as part of our whole digital skills, that picture, for 7 weeks, we would have done virtual digital transformation series where we are showing people what is already available and what they need to get on board. So the methodology that we're using for this project, we're collaborating with policy and lawmakers to review existing laws. As I said, there is no way we can provide service excellence if we do not have the legislation in place to support it. We are also using an integrated approach rather than a functional approach, because we do not want to partially digitalize processes. We want to ensure that if we're providing a process online, we take into consideration all of the steps necessary and make sure that somebody can complete online. So you're not going to fill out an application form for a birth certificate and then go back after and hand somebody cash. Nope. And so the project is supporting complete process digitalization. And all of that is being done with the user in mind and using a user-centered approach. So what we would have learned in Dominica. So I'm just gonna share some of the lessons that we have learned so that you do not repeat them when you're taking on you're continuing, I should say, your digitalization process. So we want to think more about the users and less of the digital transformation. User-centered approach, user-centered design. It's all about our users and creating that service excellence. So forget the digital transformation for a minute and think of how will this form be completed by the user? Should it be 2 steps, 3 steps? Think of put yourself in the position of a user. Are you going to be frustrated, as somebody said, in trying to complete that tax process? Most of all, don't be afraid of change. Change is inevitable. Be a forward thinker and industry changer. So we're not building for today, but we're building for future reference, okay? We're not going to change the process because COVID makes it necessary. It provided the opportunity for us to look at how we are providing the service and how we can do better at providing the service. So we don't just implement e-payment because government wants to collect revenue and they don't want to miss the opportunity of collecting that revenue. But how is it that we can ensure, all of the services that somebody has to go and pay for online, it's not a frustrating process? Have stakeholder support or buy-in for innovative ideas. Find that champion, find that person that is going to ensure that whatever we're implementing, it's going to be successful. We know that in the public service, there are processes that we have to follow. There are, red tapes that we need to jump. Things has to get approved by 6 and 7 individuals. And so we need to have that person that is going to ensure that there is smooth transition through the implementation and the approval process. This is one of my favorite pictures of a government, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you Google it, you will get additional information on it. But this is the a good government, ugly government, bad government. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. And there are so many questions. So I see Daniel's hand up. But Daniel, we're going to come to your hand soon. But I am just going to go to the chat where there are quite a few questions there already. So first one is from Michelle Bain. With the increase in public information being placed online, we're quite concerned about ransomware attacks and other cybersecurity issues for government entities. And so the question is, how do you suggest approaching the convenience cost of going online? How do you suggest coordinating these efforts between the specific ministries? For example, the ministry responsible for ICT and national security.
Yes, so having a central coordinating agency, that is key. So for instance, in the government of Dominica, there is an ICT unit, right? So there's a Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy, and there's an ICT unit. And the ICT unit really is the coordinating agency for technology within the public service. And on top of that, we have an e-government, well, we call it e-government steering committee. And that committee is made up of members, members of different ministries. And what happens is anytime there's anything digital happening in a ministry, that person, that focal person in that ministry that is part of the e-government steering committee will bring it to the committee's attention. We'll debate about it, look at whether make sure that nobody else is doing something like that. And if somebody else is doing something like that, then we see how we can now bridge that gap in the whole collaboration process. Okay? And so this has worked in that a ministry or a department, they're not sort of allowed to implement anything digital without involving the ICT unit. So the ICT unit must sit on that committee. And since the ICT unit is the secretary for the e-government steering committee, then the ICT unit can bring to that ministry what is already existing and so on. So this is the approach that we have used and found it to work. And so it's rare for us to have confusion, for lack of a better word, in terms of ICT or digital implementation.
Thank you. It's absolutely important that when we see the need for collaboration, you have to set up the mechanisms to allow for that kind of collaboration and integration and ensure that they are working well. Thank you for that response. Let me go to Daniel. Daniel, you can unmute. So Daniel, if you could say where you're from, etc., and pose your question. Okay, Daniel.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation. I think it was very
okay,
good.
Daniel, your volume is extremely low.
Extremely low. All right.
Yeah, we're hardly hearing you. Can you talk? Is it possible to maybe come closer to the microphone or?
All right. How is this? Is this any better?
Yeah, somewhat better. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I was just commenting that it was a very useful presentation. I think it touched on a number of concepts that we are looking at even locally. So just for introduction, my name is Daniel Knight. I am the current director of e-government within the government of Antigua and Barbuda, specifically within the Ministry of Information Communications Technology and Digitalization. So we would have had a recent name change because of the fact that we recognize that our focus and emphasis may not have been as it were. And I was intrigued by the discussion on the civil registry in particular, because we have a project that is ongoing as we speak, and we notice certain similar circumstances in relation to that. The minister in his wisdom recognized that we had to move from a focus on technology to more of an integrated approach with business and technology and business solutions as a concept. So I think this is a very timely intervention. I agree with many of the points shared from the standpoint of the legislative framework that is required, as well as an overarching strategy. So my question is, how do we address the people problem, as I would call it? Because I noted certain discussions, but some of these things are not necessarily black and white per se. In essence, a lot of times the agencies that are led by people may not have a full awareness or appreciation of the work that is being done by the coordinating agency. Likewise, there may be this fear of disruption, which is inevitable, or this notion that the fiefdoms and the kingdoms that they have will be taken away. And so even when you try to sensitize, whether it be permanent secretaries or heads of departments, they would agree in theory or in concept in meetings, but may not necessarily want to push forward particular matters that may be beneficial in the long run. So that's my first question. How do we truly address that? The second is really from our vantage point, because we are currently moving forward the digital agenda here. But I noticed that there's a project that is ongoing. Would there be funding associated with the project? And can we have access perhaps, or even tap into some of those resources? Because as you rightly pointed out, investment in ICT can be quite costly. But I think if we look at it from a baselining scenario and a percentage of GDP, it's often underfunded. So we welcome any additional resources that may be achievable. And final question, if you can hear me out, is how do we envision including change management and business process reengineering in the entire discussion, along with the use of digital IDs? Because from our vantage point, we foresee that these particular sort of tools are very important in ensuring that there's a successful implementation accordingly. So thank you for hearing me. Thank you for the presentation, and cheers.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions. Okay, so in terms of addressing the people problem, I'll use your phrase. One of the things that we have found is that people tend to be scared because they are operating from an uncomfortable environment. So it's like we're trying to bring technology into the public service, not recognizing that a lot of people within the public service cannot use the technology. And most of them will not say that I am unable to use the technology, because they figure somebody might say, what, in 2022, you can't do this, you can't do that. So rather than say I can't use it or I'm uncomfortable using it, they will lash out in other ways, and try to block what is being done. They will figure you're trying to take a position away from them and all of that stuff. And so what we have started is ensuring that we provide training. So we do a lot of, basic training courses. So we offer courses like Excel, use of emails, because we want people to use the email. So we would offer training courses on email, Microsoft Word and stuff like that. PowerPoint, everybody wants to have a fancy PowerPoint, but they don't know how to do it. So we offer the training. We also would have sent out like a basic questionnaire to get a sort of a guide. So you don't have to put your name. People do that more when you don't have to put a name or so. So you just have to indicate your ministry, department, and so on. And then we do that questionnaire again, getting our users involved, internal users involved. We do that, send out that questionnaire to gauge where they are in their skill sets. I remember when we were doing a cybersecurity training, we would have done a whole questionnaire on cybersecurity just to get an understanding of people's knowledge of cybersecurity. And so once you get back those results, then you're able to do target training, involve them in the training. While you're training them, you're also getting them comfortable to use the technology. So you speak more about the use of the technology. What happens if I were to do X, Y, and Z? Then you have to show people what it is that you're trying to do. Again, we're not going to shove it down their throat. So we're not going to, one day just come and put a software on somebody's desk and say, this is what I want you to use. No. Take, for instance, we're doing a health management information system. And so we have done several workshops, even before we started the whole getting the technical requirements for the system. We have done a whole week of workshop in trying to get people to understand what will change when we put the health information system in place. And we do it from their vantage point. So we would ask the nurse, okay, if we were to, how do you do your work today? And they will say, hey, I have to complete like 5 forms, 10 forms, and send it to my supervisor. And perchance my supervisor would lose one of that form. I have to do it all over. So just by them saying that out loud, they're saying how, while they already know it's a frustrating process, but just by dialogue and speaking, saying it out loud, they're even saying how much more ridiculous it is to have to complete 6 forms. So now we say to them, well, guess what? When we put the health information system in place, you don't have to complete 6 forms. You only have to enter the information once. And guess what? Your supervisor doesn't need to ask you for a report unless your supervisor just figure they want to give you extra work. They can go on the system themselves and get a report, you know. And so we have to dialogue with people. We have to be able to sell what it is that we're doing. And we shouldn't make it sound like, okay, government is changing X and you're going to have to go with X. No, what is in it for them? What is in it for you? When I put in that health information system, what is in it for you? You no longer have to complete 6 forms. You know, if you're at work 8 hours, 6 hours should not be spent filling out forms. And so that openness, so one, training, they're not going to tell you they need training, but they need training. So think of training them, getting them sensitized ahead of time. That communication, that user-centered approach, consider your people as users and use the user-centered approach. The key principles, use it. Now,
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
The revenue sharing, the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, that's a World Bank project, and the countries would have had to sign up ahead of time for it. So I am not sure if there's going to be another Caribbean Digital Transformation tool, but what I would advise is that you probably speak to the West. I'm not sure who is your agency, but speak to them, you know, and see if they can get that. I know OECS is doing some work on digital transformation as well as CARICOM. So whoever your focal point for those institutions, reach out to them. And of course, the Commonwealth of Dominica is always willing and ready to share at no cost to any government that is willing to, you know, would want some resources or some assistance in how to do ABC, X, Y, or Z. We're always willing to share. In terms of change management, that's a big component. We have actually brought in a consulting firm to do change management for us. So all of the activities, all the programs that we're going to implement, it comes with a change management component because digitalization, digital transformation, service excellence, no change management, no can do.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Now, in the chat, there are 2 persons, Erica Harris and Charles Harris, have asked a number of questions. And I'm thinking it might be easier if we just ask them to unmute their mics and to just ask their questions. Some of the answers may have been, you know, given already based on the questions you have answered so far. But Erica, I'm going to ask you to unmute, if you may, and just pose your question.
Okay. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks.
Good morning.
All right. I had some difficulty hearing the other person who had unmuted, so I'm not sure if any of these were already addressed. Right.
Just go ahead.
Okay. All right. What were some of the mitigation strategies the Commonwealth of Dominica used for the inherent, this is the way it's always been done, characteristic in government?
The key one for us really was getting it approved by policymakers. And so we basically start, whenever we're going to do a system, we start with a prototype, right? And so we do a whole concept document, we literally do a prototype of the system, and then we get it approved by policymakers. So once it gets approved by the Cabinet of Ministers or the Committee of Permanent Secretaries, then we go into implementation. When we implement, we do that whole dialogue, speak to the people. Case in point, when we move from e-payment, we move our salary statement, sorry, used to be a printout at the end of the month. I remember the box of paper, just to print that cost about 64,000 or 20 something thousand US just for the month. And so we moved to an online version, and we started slowly where we introduced it to like the Ministry of Finance, since they're the ones having to pay for the paper. And so we did the entire Ministry of Finance, and we got feedback, we got comments, and we made changes based on the comment feedback and so on. And then after we moved it to the entire public service. And so we would have had where persons were like, oh, I don't have a computer. We said, okay, well, during lunch hour, you can use your neighbor's computer in the office to print it. We showed them why they did not have to print it. It's paper they need to store at their house. We showed them, hey, when it's tax return, you have to be bothering somebody to find you that salary statement. But guess what? If you just go to Inland Revenue, give them your username and password, or you can do it yourself, then you don't need it. You're not going to wait 2 months to do your tax return, but you can do it in 1 day. And so we showed the benefits, what is in it for you. But coming back to your question, to answering your question, really it was ensuring that we got the policymakers' approval. Once something comes down and it says approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, then we have to now find ways of ensuring that we use it and it is done. It's not a wicked stick kind of thing, but it's, hey, that's the approving body kind of thing.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Now we're actually coming down to almost to the end of our webinar. So I just want to get in as many questions as possible. I know Erica had more questions, but what I can do, Erica is an IT professional. I met Erica, we both worked in the government of Jamaica. So Erica, what I can do is, Joel, if you don't mind, I could share with her your email address so that she could follow up with you for, for other information.
Sure, no problem.
Right. So there's another question in the chat.
Yeah.
Sure. Are there plans to treat with the unbanked? Those people who, because, they're not financially included and therefore would not be in a place to do their online, do online payments and then do everything online. And then after that, I'm going to ask Charles to unmute to pose one of his questions. So let's treat that unbanked question and then I'll come to Charles.
Yes. So we have not yet started, but the plan is to work with the Ministry of Social Services, because you can get a card. You don't necessarily need a bank account to get a debit a card with we call it debit card, but it's not really a debit card per se. But so we plan to work with the Ministry of Social Services today to address that.
Okay, great. Charles. Hi, Charles.
Hi. Good morning, all.
Yeah, so Charles, you had many questions, so you can only pose one. And that's the same in terms of connecting you via email to Jermaine Jewel afterwards.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, I would only pose one. Yeah, we are all aware that digitalization will not take place if the legal and regulatory environment is not appropriate. Given the reality that this environment tends to lag others, what has been the experience in Dominica with respect to updating of legal and the regulatory environment? Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, for that question. And so Dominica, there are 4 pieces of laws that speaks to e-government, doesn't speak to digital technology, e-government. And what we have done since is we have hired a legal firm. Interestingly, they're gonna be in Dominica from Monday, and they're going to look at all our laws, more so in support of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. we'll be doing a lot more activities under that project. And we're heading, like I said, to digitalization and the whole service excellence. And so we have hired that firm, and they're gonna come in and review and draft when necessary all of the laws that will support the activities that we want to implement. And it's going to move from electronic to digital, electronic and digital when necessary.
Fantastic. There's another question in the chat, and that's going to be the last question we'll pose to you, as well as just to ask you to leave your parting charge to our participants here. So the question Anita has posed, is it a situation where once information is uploaded and entered by the user, it can also be accessed by other related agencies if there is a need?
If we're speaking, well, not if now, we are speaking digitalization and we are speaking service excellence, we will need to ensure that if there are 8 agencies responsible for one process, then that information needs to be accessed by all 8 agencies. My favorite example in Dominica is the potato license. It costs $2, right? To get a potato license, but you must interact with 5 agencies just to get that license. I'd probably be illegally planting or selling potato in that case. And so when we move to that whole digitalization, all the agent, once it's entered by the main agency, the process of approval will be done online and the information accessed by all the other agencies. Your birth certificate, if all I need, immigration needs to do is to verify that I was born in Dominica, why in God's name must I go and stand in a line at the registry to get a birth certificate just for that purpose? The information on the birth or on the events need to be accessed by immigration so that they can verify the information. That is digitalization, and that is service excellence.
All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, this has just been really rich food. I certainly have learned a lot. Difference between digitization, digital transformation. And there are a couple of people who want to reach out to you afterwards. So I will be linking you guys via email, because quite a few people are in that same digital transformation space, and it's good to foster that networking and further collaboration. So Joel, really, thank you once again. To quote Sean in the chat, this has been a phenomenal seminar. So thank you all for attending, for engaging in this process. And as we close out this webinar, I want to invite you, if you haven't yet done so, and share this information. We have our call out now for our mid-level leadership development program. And you see a lot of the things that Joel shared here, a lot of that will be taught and is taught in this program. How we treat with design and innovation in service delivery, how we manage change, how we improve our inclusivity through looking at values and ethics and gender and diversity. You will learn so much about how do you lead yourself, how do you lead your teams, and particularly leading for a citizen-centered service. So you can visit our website at CARICAD.net. Email us if you want additional information. There's our email address there, info@caricad.net. And so thank you so much. We are going to be now launching our feedback poll. We want to get your feedback. And so there it is. And so we invite you just to fill that out for us. And then once you are done, that you can just exit and you can listen out, check our website and listen out to our social media pages for the next webinar that will be coming up, which I believe is actually going to be in July. So thank you all very much. Have a good rest of the day and rest of the